no, good. Thanks for giving the subject some airtime. I mean, I've personal experience of addiction for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who counts themselves extremely fortunate that I found a way out of it, which for me was through the 12 steps of recovery.
Through AA, yeah.
It was another fellowship, actually.
Okay, but the similar principle. What were you addicted to, Graham?
To alcohol and cannabis.
Okay.
And, whilst, of course, you're talking about, the drugs like crack cocaine and heroin, which, what comes with that is a greater sort of unmanageability to life. So whilst I wasn't addicted to those drugs, I know scores of people who were.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happens. I mean, cannabis can have a name as being not very serious, which is not, well, it wasn't true for me. It was deadly for me. Alcohol was deadly for me.
And did the two go hand in hand? Was it like smoking and drinking simultaneously?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I suppose there's 2 points kind of that I'd like to make. The first one is that there is a way out of addiction. The problem is, so kind of bringing it back to what you're discussing regarding, perhaps decriminalising or legalising, money available for treatment and rehabs, which is important. This might sound depressing to some people, but whatever is done will barely scratch the surface of the problem of addiction, mostly because a lot of people will not want help.
Mm-hmm.
And
because they don't recognise they have a problem, or because they quite enjoy doing what they're doing?
Yeah, probably a mixture of the two. It was like that for me. People couldn't get close to me. I'd get irritated whenever anyone brought the subject up, for years and years and years, until I just had a moment of, complete despair. And then I was lucky that the help was there at the right time. It's like a window of opportunity.
Yes, yeah, and you took it.
Yeah, and so in that regard, I do count myself lucky. All of that said, decriminalising or legalising would certainly make it safer for entrenched kind of users, and I think they've had good results. Portugal, I think they do something similar in Holland as well.
But do you not think more people would? I mean, to go back to that question I've been pondering for the last 30 minutes, really, wouldn't more people start smoking or sniffing or injecting, whatever they decide?
They may do. See this up to the question as to why, not necessarily why people start in the first place, because I think in my case, I just did it because my mates were.
Yeah.
No, there was nothing kind of mysterious about it, and it just fitted for me. It worked.
But you were the one that had that sort of neurological propensity to need it more than most others might.
Yeah, I think so, and there's definitely people who have that propensity to something.
Yeah.
Because the guys that I were with at the time, I couldn't speak for all of them. Some of them may have ended up with a problem, but I know of those who they got to sort of 22, they met someone and they stopped.
Yeah.
And for some reason I couldn't do that, and there'll be scores of people in that situation.
Sure.
There'll be lots of people who go completely under the radar. I mean, I did in a way.
Yeah, of course. How long you been stopped now? How long you been clean, as the phrase goes?
For just over 3 years now.
And what is life like now without alcohol and cannabis?
Life is magical.
Isn't that funny? I always say this, but I every time I've spoken to anybody who's had any kind of addiction, regardless of what it was, I always ask that question. And the answer is almost always the same, that it's amazing. Life is incredible.
It's been turned on its head, and I feel very emotional talking about it now.
I'm sure.
I never thought life could be like this. And isn't it funny that all of those years that
yes.
This me thinking or so prevalent, that's vanished, and I thought, I thought life would be boring without it and all of that, and it's
that's it, isn't it? I think that word boring is quite key, actually, because a lot of people make that point, that what do you do when you go out on a night out? How do you How do you sit in a pub without a drink?
I was, on the rare occasions I used to be someone driving for the night. I was miserable as sin.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait to get home to have a drink. And it's, like I said, it's practically miraculous. And I count myself extremely lucky. And I guess to anyone who this was resonating, whether it's me or a family member, life had to change completely.
And it can change as well. It really can. I mean, just very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, Graham, the question I posed at the beginning is: do we legalise or penalise? Because you're stuck a bit there, aren't you? Because yes, legalise would make sense, but also you don't want people doing what you did.
No, tragically, there's really no easy answer to that question. Legalising would be better. I think be better than penalising. But the tragic truth is that whatever is done, barely the surface of the problem will be scratched. I mean, to give that some context, speaking for myself, I held down a job for 16 years. So to the outsider looking in, who wasn't my family or friends,
nobody knew.
Nobody knew. Yeah. And there will be hundreds of thousands, if not more people in that position. So it's, I think the really important thing to anybody who's listening, whether they suffer personally or it's a family member,
sure,
is that there is a way out. But that's got to be, in my experience of.
It's got to come from you, though, hasn't it? Because all those people over the years, probably hundreds, who told you, and as you rightly say, why would somebody want to come between you and your spliff and your glass of whiskey, whatever you were drinking? Why would anybody, what's it got to do with anybody else, etc.? So the user has got to be, I know this is obvious stuff, but it often gets missed. It's got to be that desire from the person with the problem, who doesn't see they have a problem for much of the time.
That's right, and you see that also has to be accompanied by that window of opportunity.
Of course.
So for the the money that may be spent for availability for rehab, and I think it is important. I do think that's the right thing.
Absolutely, got it. Listen, Graham, I step in because we have slightly overshot on time, but that's been a fascinating story. I'm so glad to hear that you turned that corner, and thank you for sharing that with us. And I hope that's encouraging to other people.